Hello, welcome to the Crazy Sewing Room again. I thought today I'd show you how to do appliqué. It's incredibly versatile. You can use it for commercial posters or just beautiful pieces on cushions. I'm actually today going to make a really simple sling bag. Take it up to the next level by putting some funky appliqué on the front of it. This is really simple and I think it'll illustrate just how easy it is to do it. So the first thing I'm going to do is press my fabric. So the bag I've chosen to do today is actually a pattern I got from Motif Studio. You buy it online, then you download and print the pieces, and then you stick them together. I actually sew mine together. I usually masking tape, but I haven't got any masking tape in, so stitching them together actually makes it really durable, and it means I can press them. When they start to get a bit bendy and foldy, I can press them without the sticky tape sticking to them. So because I'm lazy, I never use pins. So I have got lots of these weights. So I just bought these from a vintage shop, actually. And I find them so useful in my workroom. So I just put some woven bonded interlining on there, just to give it a little bit more body than it already has. So this is my design Bible. The nicest bag I did a while ago was there you go, Moustache and the Monocle. Now this is where the magic happens. This is Web. It's by Vyline, or I think they're called Visline now. And the first thing I'm going to tell you is I've got a few meters on here that I use all the time. Over time, it will unstick itself from the base fabric. It's quite important that is all attached. So I'm going to hover the iron over it and steam. That has now re-adhered that to the paper. So this is the design I'm going to use. Although it'll be spaced like that on my bag, I actually only need that, that and that. So it's actually a much smaller amount of web that I'll need. So I'm going to work out, I'm going to need that. That will come down to about there. I'm guessing I'm only going to need a piece about that big. I can't bear waste, so I'm certainly not going to cut it out just as it is. Roll that up. So give my appliqué fabric a good press. This is the motif is going to be in this fabric. So just get that nice and flat. I've got my sheet of web that I've cut roughly to the size of the amount of motif I need. And it's very clear to feel there is rough on one side and just smooth paper on the other. The rough on one side is the glue that we just adhered by steaming, just to make sure it's nice and anchored. And with a little bit of handling, that will come loose again. But again, it's not the end of the world, just steam it back. So glue side down, that's the rough side down, on the wrong side of the fabric. Okay, there's your cord. There's your wrong side of the fabric. There's your glue. That's going down like that. I'm going to give it a good press. Now, there's no point doing any steaming at this point because the steam won't permeate the paper. And in fact, what happens is it bounces back. I've very often burnt my hands by doing a quick steam. More steam comes back out at me than should. I'm going to cut the excess off just so it's easy for me to handle. So I'm going to do this way round. In fact, it doesn't matter which way round, but let's pretend it does. If that was writing or something that was very specific that knotted into a design that you needed it very definitely that way round, not that way round. This is how you're absolutely certain you get it everything in the right way round. So what we're going to do is we're going to peel the paper off the glue off the glued fabric. I'm going to peel it right up until the point where it's nearly off the edge. There we go, can you see? There's only that little bit of edge. How am I going to trace? Moustache first. So those are our shapes, which we're now going to press onto here. Now then, because I've chosen a black, once I've pressed that on, that's going to be almost impossible to see. On a lighter fabric, no problem, just carry on as you are. But I'm just going to quickly run over those so I can see them on my paper side, because that's what we're going to cut out. Now, we're done with our design now. We're going to press that back, hopefully lining it up with the glue, because there's nothing worse than getting that on the iron. We can clearly see the shapes we need. So let's glue that paper back on to our appliqué fabric. Fully stuck down. Now we're going to cut those out. Pick a side, any side, that's going to be my front. Now we know our base of our bag is going to be about there. It'll probably fold in about there and there. So that gives us an idea of the middle of our fabric. So no further down than there, probably no further up than there. And then we'll find our centre point is there. So what we need to do now is peel off that paper that remains on our pieces. It's quite a fiddle, so I quite often slide a little pin in there and drag it round, and that makes life a little bit easier. Ooh, that's a good sound, isn't it? We know that has to be in the centre somewhere, but we'll reserve judgment as to where until we've got all the pieces on. It won't glue until we iron it, but it will stick there quite nicely. Let's free that up a little bit. I've just wriggled it about. There we go. To get that paper backing off. On finer fabric, that can be actually quite fiddly to do. We're going to have an eye somewhere there, and our monocle. Perfect. That's my appliqué motif. Let's get rid of that. That in a straight line. I can watch my grain there and see it isn't quite. Now we do, to make sure it's absolutely stuck in place, ready to stitch, is press. We're going to flatten this cord a little bit. Cord and velvet, a little bit tricky when it comes to appliqué, but I believe this tough jumbo cord will brush back up again. I'm going to turn it over to the other side and just make sure that steam, you can almost see the shape of the design there, make sure that steam permeates through so we've really adhered that glue. What you need is quite hot heat 3 dots on your iron and 10 seconds per piece of appliqué. Well, I think that looks really great. I'll say it myself. But now we're ready to stitch it. Pop it onto zigzag. I've got a button, you may have a dial. I'm going to slip that right down to 0 on the stitch width because I just want to do a few starting off stitches. And I'm going to come down here, not quite to buttonhole, but it says on mine a half. I'm going to show you myself doing it. It may be a half point to you, but it depends what your sewing machine is like. So you've just got to try it out. So let's give it a try on a sample of fabric. So my first stitches are going to be all in one place. Put my stitch length to 0. So they're just going to go up and down just to anchor the stitching. That's your starting off. Now watch my needle. I'm going to go to about number 4, which is not quite the full width. I don't want it very, very fat. And we're on half. So let's see what half on the stitch length looks like. Not bad, quite nice. So I'm going to put my stitch width down to 0 again so that we get those couple of stitches in one place. That's going to anchor it so it's not going to start unravelling. And now we're going to go right back up to a fat 4 on the width. And I'm going to stop and talk to you. I'm going to put the needle on the outside of the curve. So if you see, I'm actually hedging my bets on the right hand side of my motif so that most of my stitching is going onto the motif, onto the appliqué. That will give it the strength so it won't start to fray. Just as I'm coming up to this curve, I'm anticipating it, sort of almost moving it in my head in anticipation. Stop, only do an inch at a time. Go and have a gin and tonic, calm down, it's going to be great. Put my needle in on the outside curve just to gather myself and start again. Now, I've not done myself any favours here because this is quite a tight curve, but we can do this. We can do this. Take it slow, curve it as I'm stitching. When we get to this very tight curve on this end, I may well end up doing it almost by hand just to get that nice and tight. Outside of the curve when the needle goes in means that when you turn it, you won't get any gaps on that outside edge. I've done that nice tight curve. Now I'm just going to come on the inside and put the needle in just what I did there. And take this curve really slow. So I'm moving it as I'm zigzagging. So when we think we've gone far enough here, I'm going to stick the needle in, pivot, and start again. I'm going quite fast because I've done it lots of times, but actually if this takes you weeks to do it, it doesn't matter. It's a lovely, mindful thing to do, and you will be so pleased when you've done it beautifully. Try not to move the fabric any faster than it wants to go. The speed that it's going at, it knows how to keep that stitch consistent. You start tugging at it, you'll get gaps in the stitching, and if you hold it back, it'll end up bunching, and it might even get caught up in the foot. Now I've come to the end. I'm going to do exactly the same as we did at the beginning. I'm going to zoom, what's the needle? I'm going to zoom that down to 0 width, so it's just going to go up and down in the same place. And leave that ready to start your next bit. I'm going to leave my threads attached. I'll snip them later. And off we go. A couple of stitches in the one place. Then we're ready to go to, I'm going to go a bit narrow on here because we haven't got much room to play with. So I'm going to go to, I don't know, let's say 2 3/4, not quite 3. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that looks absolutely perfect to me. Can you see that my zigzag is going absolutely maximum to the very edge of that motif? So it doesn't go any further, and it will then keep all of that motif in check. Nothing will fray, and it gives it that beautiful hard edge. You can see I'm actually not doing very much in one go. I'm just stopping, having a breath, maybe turning it a whisker, or maybe just adjusting myself so I'm now ready for the next turn, because I'm almost turning with my whole body. Having a nice big sweep. This should be really easy, this next bit, because it's just lots of straight lines. So we'll start on the inside, that should be nice and tucked away. We're down on 0 width so that we did our stitch upside up and down. So we're back on another 0 stitch and then back to just less than 3 on the width. And this should be straightforward, it's lots of straight lines. Needle in on the outside edge, pivot. Needle in on the outside edge of the embroidery, pivot. So let's see what we've done. The back is quite neat. You can see almost every stitch on that contrast interlining. And the front, black on black is always good to start off with because you can't see too many of the issues. And so what we can see is a nice tight zigzag. So essentially what we've done is one very long buttonhole, nice and tight, tight enough not to show the gaps, but not too tight so it won't pass underneath our foot and gets bunched up. So there's our applique motif on the shape ready to become a knot bag. That'll be in my next video. Join me, we'll have fun. Thanks for playing.